hosted by four-time Emmy-nominated producer Frank Pace and retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor. Brought to you by We Can Coffee Company, manufacturer of freshly roasted premium coffee blends delivered directly to your door. This week's guest, CEO and founder of PRP Inc., Perry Rogers. Client list includes Shaq O'Neal.
My brother.
Frankie, my brother. How are you, brother?
Frankie, my bread?
My brother. I was trying to say brother, came out bread.
You're unbelievable. I don't know what language you're speaking. half the time.
Half Gaelic, half Irish, half American. Who knows?
Who knows?
All at once. Who knows?
But it's funny.
Hit us with a Gaelic.
Dumb as a box of rocks. What's that?
Give us a little Gaelic intro.
That's Derek, by the way, our third man in the boot.
Don Franco, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Don Franco, huh? Ooh, I like that. I like Frankie the Juice better, though. Let's see, that little Gaelic. The only Gaelic I know one phrase in Gaelic, and that's because my old man used to say it to me all the time. Hashtavel Nabaslavia Kaint Mashin, which means shut your mouth and don't be talking at all. And my old man not only said it in Gaelic, he used to say it to me in English, just in case, like that was my want in life. Just shut the hell up. The small boys are seen and not heard.
Yep.
You must have got that.
Yep. Our guest today will be Perry Rogers.
Wow.
He's a entrepreneur, to say the least.
Amazing guy, man.
His company represents Shaq O'Neal, and he's going to have some great tales of coming up in Las Vegas. Boyhood friend of Andre Agassi. He's a terrific guy. I worked with him on Suddenly Susan, so I'm really looking forward to. I've known him for 25 years now. Can you believe that?
25 years. You've known this guy for 25 years.
Yeah, he's only 50, and I've known him for 25 years.
I'm going to meet him. I just hope some of his success rubs off on me. Is that possible? Is it through osmosis? Can we do that? I mean, is that possible that I can? I mean, you know what I love about this guy? I mean, he's done so many different things. So he's got this, he's an entrepreneur, but he's got this gambling spirit. I mean, who the hell buys and sells a casino?
Yeah, before the age of 40.
Remarkable.
It's unbelievable. Well, we'll get
into that when we talk to him. But he is a gambler. I mean, I haven't even met him, but just looking at his bio, I mean, this guy's a gambler.
Yeah, for sure. Well, he takes gambles. He's not a gambler. He takes gambles.
He takes chances. He takes
calculated chances,
unlike me,
of which the odds are in his favor for success. Unlike you.
Unlike me, yeah. And he also, we'll talk about it when he comes on, because he's a remarkable guy.
I can't believe it's the last week of September already. It's crazy.
Yeah, well,
it's crazy.
Let me tell you something, pal. They just keep going quicker, don't they?
Yeah.
The years just slip by. You keep hearing that shit, but the older you get, the faster they go.
October 1st is Rod Carew's birthday, so I'd like to take this opportunity to wish Sir Rodney a happy birthday.
Did you knight him personally, Sir Rodney?
I did knight him in person. I did knight him in person. Actually, the only person I know who really calls him Sir Rodney is Laurel Preeb, who was our guest several weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He calls him Sir Rodney. Well, happy birthday. Happy birthday, Junior.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, boy, if anybody earned it with a stick, he sure did.
He did for sure.
That guy could spray the ball, boy. So, yeah.
Yep. What else you want to talk about?
I don't know, man. It's September. Football season's here. I'll tell you a story about gambling. Quick story about how nothing's on the level. My friend Blinky, and you hear me talk about Blinky all the time. A smart guy. He was my partner, my bookmaking partner.
How smart could he have been?
Good point. But he was my bookmaking partner. And Blinky, even though we were bookmaking, we were still gambling because you never stop. It's like it's in your blood. That's why I'm looking forward to meeting Perry Rogers, because he does it smart. But anyway, Blinky one day he comes up to me and says, "That's it, man. That's it." He goes, "I've picked 6 losers in a row on Sunday. 6 losers in a row." He goes, "I'm tired of losing. That's it." He goes, "Look at this. There's this guy. He's releasing his bet of the century. Bet of the century." He goes, $500. He goes, "They only release it once a year." I says, "Wait a second. Listen to yourself. The bet of the century, but they release it once a year. Doesn't that tell you it might not be on the level?" He goes, "I don't give a shit." He goes, "I'm paying the $500. That's it." He goes, "I'm tired of losing." So he calls up the service, the betting service. And all these betting services are full of shit. I mean, if they knew what they were doing, they'd sit in bed with high-priced companies.
Yeah, but they can afford to purchase radio time every freaking weekend
Because
they got to be making money.
Because people are desperate. They call
I
up
know,
these
but
guys.
they got to be making money.
But if you really knew who was going to win, you just pick up the phone. You wouldn't be going through all that shit. You just pick up the phone and bet every week, right? You'd be sitting there with a bag of Coke at a high-priced company and just using the phone. I mean, that's the way I see it. But anyway,
let's talk about this high-priced company. What do you consider high-priced company?
Well, in the old days, it was like, I'd say $250 a night. That's high-priced company. That's the old days.
Wow.
Even Blinky I had a guy tell me he was out in Vegas. He goes, I'm telling you, the economy's going to shit. It's going to shit. He goes, I just met a hooker who wanted to charge me $75 in Vegas. Because you can tell the economy's screwed up. But anyway, Blinky calls up the service, right? And he says to the guy, okay, he says, $500. He puts it on his credit card. He gives him all the information, the code on the back, the whole deal. And he says, so what's the game? So the guy says, now listen, this is our bet of the century. He says, you can't give this to anybody else. He says, you're paying for it, but you got to keep this on the hush. She goes, all right, I paid the money already. He goes, give me the game. What's the game? The guy goes, okay, it's San Francisco 49ers. And Blinky says, wow, 49ers, huh? Even though Montana's out? And the guy says, Montana's out? He says, you son of a bitch, you chiseler. But I mean, that's the way these betting
I want to
services
say
are.
that story's apocryphal.
Apocryphal. I got to write that down and look it up. Apocryphal.
Do you know what that?
Yes.
You know what that means? Of course you do.
Of course I do.
Because I want Derek to chime in because Derek, Mr. Highbrow, would tell us what it meant.
Wasn't he eating some kind of Portofino mushrooms or something the other day? What kind of shit is that?
Can you imagine that?
What kind of shit is that? It's a long way from Portofino mushrooms you were born, my friend.
You think so? You've never even been there.
Where? In the South?
Yeah.
Mississippi?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been to Mississippi?
Sure, I've been to Mississippi. I was there once. It was closed.
You must not have gone on a weekend because it's not closed on a weekend during football season. That's for sure.
No, I dated a couple of girls from Jackson, Mississippi, actually. Jackson, when Ole Miss used to play LSU in New Orleans, they'd all come into town. It was amazing. I mean, that was one thing about New Orleans, man. Every weekend, depending on who was playing LSU, Alabama'd come in. Of course, they're all coming into party, and nobody comes into New Orleans to spend one night. If they're coming down to watch a game, all these college girls are coming in to spend the weekend, and it's
actually New Orleans. That's one of my favorite places in the whole world.
I love New Orleans.
It's incredible. Yeah,
I love New Orleans. I mean, the only thing is with New Orleans, if I lived there, I'd be dead. I went back there.
Really?
Oh, without a doubt, I went back there.
Yeah, because he would have get stomped in a storm or a
I would
hurricane or
drank
something.
myself to death. There was no way. I mean, the bars never closed. It's 24/7.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I went back there to see a lot of my old friends, and they were all dead. I swear to God.
You didn't call it head, huh?
I didn't call it. I should have. I just went down there and said, let's see all my old buddies. And I went to Johnny White's, which is across the street from Pat O'Brien's, an old saloon I used to hang out in. And everybody was gone. I said, whatever happened to him? Oh, he's dead. Whatever happened to him? Oh, he's dead. How'd he die? He drank himself to death,
So Pat O'Brien's is a place with the courtyard.
Yeah, Pat O'Brien's.
You walk down like an alley.
Yeah.
In between two
Did
buildings. Did
they invent the hurricane there?
They invented the hurricane. It's also the busiest bar in the world.
Really?
Pat O'Brien's is the busiest bar in the world. And when I tended bar there, when I first got into town, I tended bar at Johnny White's, and then I finally broke into Pat O'Brien's. And back when I tended bar there, which is 1971, they were doing $8 million a year, right? And they without selling any food. The only thing they did was they gave away popcorn. Now they do food, I think. But they were doing $1 million a year just in souvenir glasses. And so if you break a glass,
right?
If you break a glass in Pat O'Brien's, you got to save the stem because they inventory it.
Mm.
But the place was a factory, though. I mean, it was, and the way they set it up was, when you first break in, they put you in the back bar. There's 3 bars. There's the piano bar. There's the main bar. When you first walk into Pat O'Brien's down the alley, there's the main bar on the left. Now, anybody who's in town and them days, the Jazz and the Saints, Chuck Muncie back in them days, used to come in, and the Jazz.
Chuck Muncie was in a lot of places.
Yeah, I'm sure he was.
I know Chuck Muncie from his days with the Chargers.
Do you really? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, he didn't like Coke, just the smell of it, huh? Well, yeah, but they all used to come in, and back then the Jazz were playing, and the only person I never saw in there was Maravich. But that was the main bar. It was on the left, right? And they had 3 bartenders, and everything was it was it was a factory. You start off when they first come there, they put you in the back bar, which is where all the waiters are. And there's a guy on the register, there's a bar back, and there's you. And people would come up and ask for drinks like, give me a hurricane, 2 hurricanes, 3 breezes, 4 pousse cafes. And the guy on the register would tell you how to make every drink, but you'd have to put all through a shot glass, make them as quick as you could. When you got good enough, then they put you on the sidebar, and then from there they moved you to the piano bar. And if you got good enough at the piano bar, then you'd get a shot at the main bar. And even there, they had 3 bartenders, and all the celebrities would hang out on the far end, and you'd work your way down to that end, But it was an amazing joint, just a factory.
What's in a hurricane?
Actually, all it is 3 shots of rum. Some grenadine, and a lot of ice, and some whiskey sour mix, sour mix.
And back then it was blended? Back in the 30s?
No,
in the
they
30s?
didn't really blend them. They just shook them up. You just throw enough ice in them, throw a couple of straws, and decorate them with an orange and a cherry. But you know how...
He made like he didn't hear that.
Back in the I know, I was older than dirt, I get it. But the thing was, even when it was raining, and you say, oh, good, I get a break at the patio bar tonight because it's outdoors and it's raining. They put you upstairs in the attic and you just make cases of hurricanes. They'd have them all set up. So all you do is just throw the ice in it and decorate.
3 rums.
3 shots of rum, yeah.
3 shots of rum. Well, the same rum, same kind of rum? Or?
Yeah, cheap rum. Cheap. Bar rum, yeah. So it's a rum sour is what it is, with a little grenadine in it. That's all it is. So like a whiskey sour, rum sour, that's all it is. But they go through cases. So that when they're selling those things, somebody orders 2 hurricanes. You just take the straws, you stick them in it, decorate it with the cherry and throw the ice in it. Boom, send it out $4. $4 back then. $4.
Not no more.
I'm sure it's
not no more.
No more.
Not no more.
But a hell of a joint.
Have you been to New Orleans lately? Like in the last?
Yeah. I try and go there every couple of years. I love them.
It's changed. It's not the same. So
it's
first of all,
booming actually.
No, it's booming, but it's very it's owned by conglomerates now.
It's owned by Disneyland.
Yeah, basically, yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that I didn't know.
It's the other night I was watching the pilot of Rockford Files, which was made 50 years ago, and there was some Rockford went to Vegas, and there were wide swaths of barren land in Vegas. Now you can't see any. And the same thing with Los Angeles. The Pacific Coast Highway was, a house and then 4 or 5 empty lots, and then there's another house and then 4 or 5 empty lots.
It's remarkable. I mean, pretty soon everything's going to be like New York. Everything's going to be like going up. They can't go sideways anymore, so they're going to have to go up.
Yep. Well, let's go up before we bring on Perry Rogers. Let's talk about Weekend Coffee. Our sponsor. First of all, I want to thank Weekend Coffee because we came through 9/11 and they were terrific to us and to first responders everywhere. And we can't thank them enough for what they did and continue to do for all first responders. But Weekend Coffee delivers premium roasts directly to your door. It's a fine product. It's a fine company. And Billy, why don't you speak a little bit?
And they give something back, which, again, like you said, to the first responders, which of course I appreciate as a former first responder, but also as a veteran. And they give back to the veterans as well. Every 10 bags, they toss a bag, which is
like the bar business.
Every 3 you get
every 3 you get one back.
You get one back. Yeah, you get your buyback. But yeah, I think that's great. I mean, they don't have to do that.
No, they sure don't.
And they do. And like you said, they deliver it to your door, and the coffee's really good. It's good
really
coffee.
Good. So let's get Perry on the phone, can we?
Let's do it.
Hey, Perry, how are you?
I'm well. How are you, Frank?
You're so soft-spoken. It just pissed me off. You're so soft-spoken. You're so under control. Me, I'm foaming at the mouth. Billy's even worse.
I'm always foaming at the mouth.
Billy's even worse. Derek's sort of calm.
Pleasure to know you, Perry. A real pleasure to know you.
But-
Delighted you
Nice
came
to
on the
meet you, Billy.
podcast, brother. Really glad.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Are you at home? Are you at the office?
I'm at home.
Well, Billy's thinking, how does this guy? This guy must have every moment of every day packed, jam-packed. His schedule must be jam-packed.
I was telling Frank, you must be like a Hydra. I never saw a guy wear so many hats. It's incredible.
Well,
Well, it's because I don't know what's going to work, so I'm spinning all the plates that I can.
yeah.
Well, you pretty much know what's going to work, all right. I mean, I tip my hat to you. I think it's remarkable.
Actually, that's a good first question, I think.
Well, why don't you ask it then?
Yeah. Perry, you can't see me. I'm off camera. I'll be on camera later. But what's your schedule like today? Is it a busy schedule on a Saturday?
It is. We have Shaquille's foundation event is coming up on October 2nd. And, the performers that night are Justin Bieber, Imagine Dragons, Kelly Clarkson, Snoop, Andrew Day, Jimmy Kimmel is the host. And our little office puts it on. So it'll be at the MGM Grand Garden. There's 5,000 people that'll be up above and about 1,500 or 1,600 people on the floor. And so trying to go through this at this time with COVID has added a completely different layer of complication to an already busy schedule. So we're in event mode now, and it just means our head is down and we just got to do the work.
Well, thank you for taking time out to be with us today. This is going to air on September 28th. So it's a good opportunity to tell people about it. Why don't you tell people a little bit about the Shaq O'Neal Foundation?
Yeah, so look, Shaquille has been philanthropic for his entire life, but he decided to formalize it 2 years ago and said, let's start the foundation. He had already done a lot of Shaq to School events, Shaq a Claus, Shaq Giving, believe it or not, they're all named after him. And he said, let's start the foundation. So it helps underserved kids really through the Boys and Girls Clubs and communities and schools, two national organizations that have been around for decades. And they focus on mainly Las Vegas and Atlanta. So those are the two places where Shaquille has a home. And our first event is coming up in just a month. So we'll see how we do. We're really blessed. We've had a lot of support. The talent that we have for this event is first rate. And it's because Shaquille has just shown a lot of love to a lot of people over a long period of time, and they're happy to help out.
So let's backtrack a little bit. We'll get back into Shaquille later. Let's talk a little bit about your background. You were born in Vegas, one of the few people that were born in Vegas, and your dad was the owner of 6 TV stations, I believe, and he was probably one of the most powerful, legitimate businessmen in Las Vegas. Why don't you tell us a little about how you grew up and how you evolved into becoming the success you are today?
Yeah, I was born in Las Vegas when it was a small town. There were about 250,000 people that lived here at the time. And as you said, my dad, he owned NBC for all of Nevada, all of Montana, all of Wyoming, part of Idaho, and part of Arizona. And he just my dad was very skilled at taking complex problems and boiling them down to their simple essence very quickly. And I was fortunate enough to spend my entire childhood watching that and seeing him use more wisdom and judgment than technical skill. And that was because he could summarize things. He could say to you, no, don't get distracted with these things. Focus on this. This is the problem. And if you solve this, you'll be fine. So I was fortunate to grow up under his tutelage. Look, he had his bad sides too. He was a difficult personality and a force to be reckoned with. But that was offset with the fact that I had a mom who was all love. And so I had a great model in her and what kindness looked like. And so I feel very fortunate to have had the childhood I had. I went off to college out east and then went to law school in the Southwest. And while I was in law school, that's when I started my career.
So you were a tennis player at Bishop Gorman, correct?
I was. I played high school tennis, and then I played at Georgetown for 1 year. And the team wasn't for me at Georgetown. I really don't think that I was good enough to have had an impact on the team at Georgetown. And but my childhood best friend was Andre Agassi. We grew up playing tennis because, as I said, Las Vegas was a really small town, and we were around the same age. He was a lot better than I was, but we got along.
Really? You think so? He was a lot better than you were. He was a lot better than everybody else in the world.
I had this girlfriend in high school that I don't think he liked very much. And out of nowhere, I said, yeah, Charlene is coming over. And he said, let's go hit. And I thought, hit? Why would you want to hit with me? And we started to hit, and then she came over, and he said, hey, Charlene, watch this. And he put his racket in his left hand and beat me 6-0 left hand. That was humbling, very humbling.
Wow.
So that's how you. And then you later on got into business with Andre, correct?
Yeah. So I was in law school, and the American Bar Association had a negotiation competition, and my friend Jeff Posen and I won the West Coast. We actually don't know how we did it. We just kind of lucked into it, and we were going out for the national finals. And right at that time, Andre and I were having a conversation about his agency, IMG. And I said, I don't really understand how agencies don't have to deal with conflicts of interest. Law firms do. How come agencies don't? And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, Andre, you think that IMG works for you? He said, they do work for me. I said, they don't. They don't work for you. You work for them. You're a menu item. He said, no, I'm not. I said, well, just walk through it. They go down to, let's say, Coca-Cola, and they say, hey, Coke, do you want to do something in the tennis business? I say, that sounds great. Well, you should sponsor someone. Sure. Who do you have? Andre Agassi. Pete Sampras? Jim Courier? John McEnroe? Oh, my kid loves John McEnroe. That'd be great. I said, so that's what I don't get, is that you're like a menu item. And they don't care whether they sell you or they sell the next guy.
Hey, Perry, I'm going to stop you for a second because you mentioned conflicts of interest. I represented Rod Carew for 40 years, as you know, and I have never taken on another client because I could never satisfy myself that if I couldn't sell Rod, I could always sell somebody else. That's it, and you're the first guy that's ever said that. That's what makes Perry so special. He recognizes that. But continue with your story.
No, I think that, and I think that's why you were so effective with Rod, because you were hyper focused on him. There wasn't a second person in your pocket. You weren't a person in Times Square opening a trench coat saying, "Want to buy a watch with 40 watches inside?"
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I said to Andre, "This is what they're doing," and he said, "Oh my gosh, well, I don't have anyone that can talk to them. But you won that thing, and you're going out for that other thing. Why don't you go talk to them?" And so I had one suit, I owned 2 ties, I had a retainer, and I flew out to Cleveland. And I had no exact idea what I was doing, but I sat down with Bob Kane, and this is actually, I think, kind of an interesting part of the story. I sat down with Bob, and I said, okay, so Andre pays you 15% of everything. We're going to move that down to 6%. And my goal was to get to 7%. But 6% of tennis endorsements, because the people at Nike and at Head Rackets and at Donné and Reebok and Adidas. So there's a value there because you bring those relationships. On non-tennis endorsements, that's Andre's personality. So we want you to go to 2% on that. And on prize money, honestly, Bob, we can't do anything more than 0%. 0? What are you talking about? And I said, no, actually, what are you talking about? I said, one of the things that my dad's taught me is that all compensation is based on 2 things and 2 things only: value and risk. And I don't see what your risk is. You get 15% of prize money, but when he loses, they don't write 15% of the bad articles about you. So I don't see what your risk is. And your value is calling up and filling out a form, which we can get anyone to do. So we need to go to 0, and that one I'm not moving on. And he went to 0, and as God is my witness, every tennis player and golfer up until that moment paid prize money, and today none of them do.
Wow.
So that did change sports.
Yeah.
But talk about solidifying it down to the simple solution, like he talked about his dad's influence. Value plus risk equals compensation. Where's your risk? That's terrific. That's mind-boggling.
So continue.
Well, that's where, like I said, I was blessed with him, and so
By the way,
I came back.
You were 21. How old were you? 21 at that time? 21 with a retainer?
I was 22 with a retainer. And so I went back, and I really thought, well, okay, I've done my part. I've restructured his relationship with IMG, and that'll be that. And I'm going to go on and get my MBA after I get my law degree. And Andre said, well, that worked out great. Why don't you just run it all for me? And I said, yeah, okay, not really knowing what I was committing to. So my third year of law school, that was in my second year, my third year of law school, I worked full-time for him, and I went to school full-time, and I was an editor on the Law Review. Maybe that's where I kind of learned to multitask. And we started the Andre Agassi Foundation during that year, which, again, doesn't sound interesting, but at that time, no current athlete had done a foundation. Athletes did them when they were retired, and they specifically didn't do them when Andre was just 23 years old at the time, 93, he was 23. And, he said, well, let's do this. And I just really always admired that Andre was great about having courage to do the things he believed in. And he believed in this foundation. He believed in the idea of helping others. And he was fearless. Bob Kane at IMG called me, losing his mind, saying, this is the dumbest thing ever. You're going to distract him from his career. You don't want to do this. And I said, I think you're wrong. I think that this is where athletes are going to go in the future. And here's what I'd like you to do, Bob. I want you to come on the board of Andre's Foundation so that you can see it firsthand. Because you guys represent a lot of people, and I think that this will help you. And to Bob's credit, in 96, at the board meeting, he said, look, when Andre started this, I called Perry and lost my mind with him, yelled at him, screamed, told him this isn't how you do it. But this foundation has already done great things. We have a young golfer that's just coming out, and we've already sat down with him and told him to do a foundation, and he's excited about it, and that's Tiger Woods. And so, I think out of people being angry, I think if you can say to someone, I think what I learned at a young age, let me put that differently. I think when I was exposed to it at a young age, but I didn't learn really until I was older, is that when someone disagrees with you, the best thing you can do is ask them to come alongside you and walk with you. So they can understand you and you can understand them. And to Bob's credit, he did. A lot of people would have said, I'm not doing that. I'm not wasting my time. What you're doing is silly and foolish. You're wrong. But he wasn't stubborn or recalcitrant about it. He was really willing to say, okay, I challenge you, and I'll come sit alongside you, and we'll see how this goes. And I think that affected great change in the future.
So to fast forward Andre's story, what year did the Andre Agassi Prep School opened up? It was probably about 98 or so?
It was 2001 that we opened. In fact,
but it was probably conceived. It probably was conceived in 98, 99.
98, yeah, that's right. We in 98, I was on a plane back from the French Open, and we had already opened the Andre Agassi Boys and Girls Club in Las Vegas, and the staff at the Boys and Girls Club was saying, what's happening is we're making 2 steps forward during the week, and we're losing 2 steps on the weekend. We just don't have these kids for enough time. And on my flight back from the French Open, this woman and her husband sat next to me, and she said that she worked at a charter school, which I'd never heard of. And I went up to Massachusetts and visited her charter school. And the laws in Nevada didn't allow for you to have a charter school at the time. So Andre and I recruited Elaine Wynn, and we went up and we changed the legislation. And then we started construction, and we built the charter school that opened in 2001.
And this school is magnificent. It now is K through 12, and they're putting kids into college. And they have maybe about 100 kids in a class, Perry.
Yeah. So the school now has 1,300 students.
Right.
Yes.
And they're all on the honor system. And the school is located in the worst part of Las Vegas, or what was the worst part of Las Vegas. And there's graffiti all over the town, except on the walls of the Agassi Foundation, because all these kids go there for free. They don't pay to
So
go.
they're all underprivileged kids,
Underprivileged kids,
worst neighborhood,
but they value this school and this education and what they're doing for the community so greatly that nobody graffitis it, and everybody's on the honor system. Their computers are out. It's a one strike and you're out, and nobody takes advantage of that.
Well, you dedicated a chapter to it, and If These Lips Could Talk, so I can see how impressed you were by the whole enterprise. I mean, it's pretty remarkable.
And to be impressed by Perry, he's not going to say this, but he negotiated a deal for Andre with Nike that saw Andre receive a percentage of every tennis item they sold, be it Pete Sampras shoes, be it Jim Courier shoes, be it clothes, be it Chris Everett underwear, whatever Nike put their stamp on, Andre got a percentage of it. And that's incredible. That's incredible. So congratulations for you on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Is that still paying dividends?
No, that deal expired in 2005. So it went from 95 to 2005, a 10-year deal that exceeded our expectations. So we were really fortunate. That was the most fun negotiation that I have ever been a part of and ever will be a part of. I've done deals now that have been larger, but that one was really special. You're young and you're going up against great, very skilled negotiators, and you're not sure if you can do it. And getting that one across the finish line felt particularly good.
Well, I want to congratulate Perry on passing the bar in Arizona from the University of Arizona. I lived in Arizona for 6 years. I was never able to pass a bar. I mean, I just couldn't do it. I think I got thrown out every one.
Well, Billy's a former bookmaker
and a former drunk.
And at 58 years old, and a former first responder and a Vietnam veteran. At 58 years old, he put the plug in the jug and went back to school at University of Florida. Got his degree in journalism at the age of 62, and for the last 10 years has been on the straight and narrow. So,
really, congratulations! That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Well,
what was it like for you to go to school at the age of 58? What did that feel like?
Oh, it was terrific.
When you first started.
Just terrific, Perry. They tell you in college, and I guess it's the big lie. This is the best. These are going to be the best years of your life. Well, at that stage, going back at 58, and running around
at 58, not in 58.
At 58, running around with a fedora on in a journalism program, I was like a story. Every kid was looking for a story every week, and I was the story. They'd come up to me and say, "Well, this guy is older than the professors. He must have a story," It got to the point that every time I came home, there was somebody either interviewing me or setting up a camera. And my girlfriend said, "Why don't you just stand outside in the box and say, spend $2 to dwell in the glory that is you?" No, I had a lot of fun. It was just great. I mean, after UF, I had started doing stand-up comedy. I ended up coming out to Arizona. But enough about me. I had a great time in Arizona, too. I love Arizona. I had a great time there. But
so continuing the story, now it's 96, and that's when I first met Perry, because Perry was a co-producer of Suddenly Susan, and he and I met and just hit it off. And in retrospect, looking back now, I think that those 4 years were probably the best years of my career, because I was given free rein in casting. Now there are so many levels. You want Bob Dole, I just called Bob Dole on the phone. You want Donald Trump, you call Donald Trump on the phone. But Perry was right there and supportive. I want to say also that I got great advice from this young whippersnapper, because we had mutual interests. Show business. I was sort of talking to Perry about show business. He was talking to me about deals, and I remember a deal that I was making for Rod Carew, and I asked Perry, how much do you think I should ask for on this deal? And he said, "What are you talking about? You talking about money?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You got enough money. Ask for ownership." And I never forgot that. Always ask for a piece of the action. Forget the money. What's an extra $5,000 going to do for you? What's an extra $10,000 going to do for you? Ask for ownership in a country. It may not work out. And, normally for me, we got ownership in the company, but the companies didn't pan out. But that made an impression on me. Perry, what do you remember about Suddenly Susan?
Well, I would agree with you. Those were some of my favorite years. And I finished law school. I graduated from law school, and Andre came in for the graduation, and he left that night to go see Brooke in Los Angeles. And I was going to drive back the next day, and he called me and he said, "Hey, don't drive back yet. Come down to LA and meet with Brooke." I didn't really know what that was about, but I flew down. We had dinner, and she said, "I want you to manage me." And I said, "Oh, no, thank you." And she said, "What do you mean no?" I said, "I don't really want to answer to your mom." And she said, No. I'm no matter what, I'm gonna sever those ties because I need to just focus on the relationship with my mom and not on her also running my career." And I said, "Oh, okay, well, I'd look at that." But I didn't really know anything about the business. And I was fortunate with two people. First was John Kimball, who was an agent at William Morris, and he would just really walk me through who the players were, what was happening, how deals were structured. And then we got lucky. One Littlefield wanted Brooke on the air. He put her on Thursday night, and we did Suddenly Susan. And you were my other mentor because you walked me through how a show is made, what makes good comedy. That wasn't John Kimball's expertise, and it certainly wasn't mine. But you were just great at it, and I realized that a producer is a conductor. That's exactly what's happening. They are making sure that the second French horn sounds as good as they can, and they've got to make it all work in rhythm. And I just was amazed with how you did that. And I don't think that we could have created Andre's Foundation event and had the success that we had, and now Shaquille's Foundation event, and hopefully, knock on wood, have the success that I hope we have. Had I not been fortunate enough to learn from you as to how to spin the plates and make a move.
Well, you're very gracious, but you're much too humble. I think you had inherently knew that and picked it up. Would have done great without me, but thank you for saying that.
Well, we had the number. I think you can correct me on this, but I think our show, the first and second year, I think they were like the number 3 or 4 show on television.
Yes, it was, but it was sort of a time slot hit because the number 1 show was our lead-in, and it was Friends.
Yeah, but Brooke Shields didn't hurt, and Suddenly Susan.
Brooke Shields didn't hurt, and we had some really good shows and really good writers, and Donzig and Peterman, Steve Donzig and Gary Peterman. Steven's been a guest on our podcast before, and it was a great time for us. We had some great guests, like I said. You remember the card game that
Yes.
Judd Nelson had? And Judd Nelson had 4 guests, and the guests at his card game were Willie. Well, I want to say Willie Nelson. Willie Brown, the mayor of San Francisco.
Willie Brown, mayor of San Francisco. Yep.
Mr. T.
Mm-hmm.
John McEnroe, who Andre got and Perry got, and then a 4th guest was Donald Trump.
Yep.
They were all playing cards.
If you recall, we went for Steve Wynn before we went for Donald Trump. Steve Wynn turned us down.
I wonder who was cheating in the game. Anybody cheating in that card game? I wonder.
And then, I always remember whenever Andre used to come to the set, he would go to craft service. Craft service is where the food was. And we had this woman, Shirley, who would always fix Andre grilled cheese sandwich, and Andre would tip her $20. So whenever Andre was on the set, nobody else ate. she followed Andre around, whatever he wanted, he bought for that $20. He was a great guy, a great guy.
I'm sorry. I know what Perry says, stay humble. I love that piece of advice because he says, one of the reasons for his success is that he stayed humble. And when you graduated from the University of Arizona, when you got your law degree, it was only 26 years ago. I mean, there's an old adage that the Romans say, those whom the gods would destroy, they make successful young. How in the world, with the success that you have you been able to stay humble like that? It's incredible to me, the amount of things you've accomplished.
I think that, I tell people this, you can choose humility or God will choose it for you. And unfortunately, B was the way I chose to live. I don't think that I was humble. In my 30s, I was a runaway train. And, when you're a runaway train, your life's going to implode, which is what happened. And I was fortunate enough, when my life imploded, I was fortunate enough to have a girlfriend at the time who's my wife now. And she just is a rock solid human. And I had a business partner in Colin Smeaton and Mike Parrish, Shaquille's uncle, and I had Shaquille. And those four people kind of rallied around me and said, you can be better and you can do better than this. And that's what we expect of you. And so I think that they say youth is wasted on the young. And I think I wasted a lot of time not understanding how fortunate I was and how things have fallen my way. And I think that as I've gotten older, I've really been able to back up and appreciate that, if my parents didn't choose to live in Las Vegas after they finished college and law school, I don't mean Andre. I'm not given these opportunities. And so I think that with age, you are able to look back and realize, man, a lot of things had to fall my way. And decisions had to be made, and hopefully they were the right ones, and hopefully they worked out and built a good business. But man, things had to fall my way, and they did. So I think that's what I've learned later in life, Billy. I wish I were that smart younger.
You talk about opportunity knocks, but you have to open the door. There's another side of that. Opportunity knocks, but you have to hear it.
Yeah.
In order to open the door.
And when the door opens, you got to be ready.
And when the door opens, you got to be ready. So how did the door open for you with WW with the Fertitta brothers?
UFC?
Fertitta brothers and Dana White.
Yeah. So Lorenzo and I have been friends since we were 10 years old. We went to high school together. We were the same year. Dana White was in our class as well. We had this really small class that was ridiculously successful for women. Marty Cordova was in our class. When we finished high school, I said to Marty, so what are you going to do? And he said, I think I'm going to try this baseball thing. I kind of like it. And he ended up being the American League Rookie of the Year.
With the Twins?
Baltimore Orioles.
Oh, with the Orioles.
And then he went to the Twins, yes. And then Tim Poster was in our class. Tim sold a company to Expedia for north of $100 million. And then Tim and his business partner, Tom, and Andre and I ended up buying the Golden Nugget Hotel. So this little tiny class, and then Cedric Creer is going to be the next mayor of Las Vegas, by the way. So this little tiny class did well. Well, Lorenzo and I played basketball together growing up, along with Cedric Creer, who, as I said, will be the next mayor. And we'd started a bank called Nevada First Bank, and we'd done well in that bank. And then we went to lunch. He asked if we go to lunch, and we went to lunch, and I said, yeah, sure. And he said, look, I'm kind of struggling with UFC. His brother Frank and Lorenzo had lost at this point. They bought it for $2 million. At this point, this is known, so I'm not giving away a secret. They'd lost $40 or $50 million. And he said, it's overwhelming. And I said, okay, well, walk me through what you're facing. He said, okay, I don't have enough pay-per-views. I don't have enough press. I don't have enough sponsors. I don't have enough fighters. it's all a function of me not having momentum. And I said, okay, well, you're a little bit like a swamp. You're trying to go in every direction at once, and so you're going to go nowhere. You got to pick one direction and cut through the earth. The river can do that. And he's like, okay, well, what would you do? I said, well, I would do a TV show. And I said, I can't do much, Lorenzo, but I could help you with that. And Lorenzo said, well, there's a new network that's going to launch called Spike, which I didn't know anything about. And I said, okay, it's like a men's network, and maybe we could do something there. So we looked it up, and that was owned by, I think, Viacom. And Albie Hecht, which who was the head of it, which he was also the head of Nickelodeon, had pitched me on a Shaquille cartoon like 3 weeks earlier. And so I knew him. So I called him up and I said, hey, Albie, it's Perry Rogers, represent Shaquille, but I also, work with UFC, my friend Lorenzo Fertitta. Could we come down and talk to you? And he said, you gave me the nicest no I've ever gotten. So come on down. And so Lorenzo and Dana and Kirk Hendrick from, and I'm not sure if Lawrence Epstein was there or not. We flew down and we met with Albie, and he said, okay, I'm interested in this for Spike. And it took about another 9 months to put together, but they launched The Ultimate Fighter. And I'll tell you what a class act Lorenzo is and what a moron I am. So Lorenzo calls me and he says, hey, we're going to launch this show. This is going to happen. What can I do for you? And I'm like, this guy lost like $50 million and, he's a friend. That's okay. What do you mean? That's fine. And he's like, well, Perry, I'm happy. I said, no, listen, I was happy to help. Well, then it takes off. I'm like, well, this wasn't very smart. And to Lorenzo's credit, he calls me back and he says, what are you doing? I said, I'm just working. And he said, well, my yacht is in the Panama Canal. And I'm thinking, I'm not going to be outdone by anybody. So I said, well, my car is in the shop. No, seriously. My yacht's in the Panama Canal. It's going to the west coast of Costa Rica. I want you to take it. I said, what? He said, I want you to take it with your family. Go have a good time. When you come back, let me know what you think a fair retainer is to pay you per month, because you were really helpful to us, and I want to show my appreciation. I just thought, man, what a class act. What a good guy to do that. He had offered once, and he had every right to say, I offered and you didn't take it. But to call me back and say, hey, I now realize that we've hit a different stratosphere was very kind and very cool of him.
And then Dana White entered the picture also?
Well, Dana, from the time we were young, you just knew Dana was going to be something. He just had this great personality. He didn't have the grades to be something, but he had the personality for it. And he's the one that saw that
he was a visionary.
The Ultimate Fighter could be something. And he went to Lorenzo and said, let's buy this together. And so Lorenzo and Frank put up the $2 million, and Dana owned, I think, around 10% of it. And they just started to build it. And, Dana, to his credit, if you listen to Dana walk you through why the Ultimate Fighter or UFC was going to be big, it's kind of difficult to unsee it. Once you see his perspective, he said, listen, Perry, you know what's never going to happen in India? They're never going to know the rules of American football. And you know what's never going to happen in America? We'll never understand cricket. But you put two dudes on a corner and have them fight, we all get it.
And that's you, right? Just bringing things down to simplicity.
Right?
That's you, all
right? Taking the complex and going, okay, all sports gets put into this. And you're like, wow, yeah, that works. And so he just got it. And he knew what they were going to build, and they built it. To their credit, they have been practically undefeated. They really have. They've done a great job.
They've done a marvelous job. So let me ask you about the Golden Nugget, because Billy's never placed a past a place that he hasn't placed a bet.
How you taking care of my money, Perry, by the way? How's my money doing? Are you managing it properly?
How did that happen?
I made a few deposits in the Golden Nugget.
How did that all happen, and why did you get out of it so quickly?
Well, Tim Poster, as I said, we were my first day of high school. Tim Poster turns around and says, I don't even know him. He says, hey, you got $25? Yeah, I got $25. Why? He said, the Showboat Hotel has a contest that if you pick all the NFL games, you have the best record at the end of the season, you win a house. It's $50, and I only got $25. You got $25? We'll be partners. So we went in as partners. He said, my uncle will buy us the card, and so we can fill these things out every week. After week one, we realized we weren't going to win a house. That didn't take very long. We were terrible. But it's how I got to know Tim. And he went off to college. He started this company where he would resell hotel rooms in Las Vegas. And then when the internet came, he's like, well, I'm pretty good at reselling rooms. I'm just going to do this everywhere. And so he and his business partner, Tom Breitling, went across the country, got hotel room after hotel room, built their company, and sold it to Expedia for north of $100 million. But Tim found himself then bored. He said, it's great. It was fun to sell. I don't know what to do. And we went out to lunch. Excuse me. We went out to lunch, and I said, we should buy the Golden Nugget from AMG.
I love it.
He said, you think that'll happen? I said, yeah, let me call Jim Murren. So I called Jim, and Jim said, why the hell would I ever sell the Golden Nugget? I said, well, it's a distraction for you. It's not a distraction for me, Perry. It's where we train our next great set of managers. We use it as a farm system. So I was embarrassed. I called Jim back, and I said, yeah, that didn't go over well. And about 6 or 7 months later, Jim called me back. And he said, do you think you guys would still want to buy the Golden Nugget? I said, yeah. He said, I think we'd sell it. So we worked out selling it. And the guy who did our bond financing also was in our high school class, Kurt Magleby. And so we put in $50 million of equity and $165 in debt. So we bought it for $215. And the cash flow, the EBITDA from it was $32 million a year. We had Las Vegas and Laughlin, and we made all these changes. We changed the odds on craps. We completely redid the sports book and marketed the sports book, marketed the locals. We were incredible. And we took that place. You have to understand how great we were at this. We took it from making $32 million all the way up to $32 million. Nothing changed. Nothing at all changed. Nothing. We made all these changes and nothing happened. But Tilman Fertitta, Lorenzo and Frank's cousin, wanted to get into the industry. And so he came in, and these numbers are public. Otherwise, I wouldn't say them, but they are public because they have to be in the gaming industry. You have to disclose everything. So he said, look, forget your 165 in debt. I'll take that. On your 50 million, I'm going to give you 90 million. We own the place for a year at this point. And we said, no, we're childhood friends. We're going to build a casino company together. He said, well, I'll give you 110. We said, no, we're childhood friends. You're not really listening to us. We're not going to sell. I'll give you 130. No. In fact, now you're being offensive. I'll give you 150. Listen, you need to leave. We're not selling. I'll give you 163. Where do we sign? We were gone. We were gone. Like in the middle of the night, we were gone. So we again, I just feel like these things have happened, and look, yeah, you had to answer the door, and we took a chance, and we wrote checks, and there were a lot of nights where you thought, well, this was dumb, but I think that in Las Vegas, I always liken Las Vegas to a little bit like when you go to the county fair, and there are those boards that have all those balloons, and they tell you to throw a dart and hit a balloon. In Vegas, you just have to throw the dart. In all honesty,
it takes cogs, though. You got a pair of cogs, pal. It takes a pair of cogs. That's for sure.
So all this probably leads up to your biggest success, which is Shaq. why don't you go into Shaq and you know, I want you to finish on Papa John's, because Papa John's is perhaps the greatest marketing scheme. It's not a scheme that I've ever seen, because Papa John's was down and out. He was in the toilet. He was alienated black people. He had lost it, and you guys walked in with Shaq and asked for ownership of the company, and they had no choice but to give it to you. So work backwards if you want from Shaq and Papa John's, because I know Shaq's first deal was with Icy Hot, and that's now continued for 21 years. But why don't you work backward from Papa John's, because that was brilliant.
Well, thanks. You know, first of all, Shaquille is the Pied Piper of people, and he just is such an easy like. He's an easy guy to root for, and he's really sincere. I hope that it's clear that I feel really fortunate to have had a best friend in Andre that afforded me these opportunities that I hadn't earned, but hopefully earned over time. And when my relationship with Andre ended, it was really hard and stressful and sad. And I got a phone call in the middle of the night. It was 1 a.m. It was Shaquille. And he was on an East Coast road trip, so for him it was 4 a.m. It says blocked ID, and I'm scared. I don't know what's happening. This is not a good call, a 4 a.m. call. Hello? Hey, brother. Hey, Shaquille, you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. What's up? You know, he said, you know, I was thinking about you, and I was thinking about what you're going through and how hard this has to be for you. And I was wondering if anyone told you that they loved you today.
Wow.
And I said to myself, don't wonder. Get up and call him and let him know. And that kind of love is exactly where you can start with Papa John's. Papa John's was in trouble. Their founder was just not a good guy. And it's just that simple, just not. And said things that you just don't say if you have empathy or kindness or decency. And he had to sell the company and was out. And a new person in Jeff Smith, who's really bright, came in, and a new company called Starboard bought into Papa John's when they were down and out. And they said, we want a personality that can change the tune, change the narrative. And they came to us and said, what would you think about this? And I went to Shaquille, and I gotta say, it was Shaquille who really saw what this was. I said, I think this is dangerous. And he said, Perry, listen, if they'll give me a board seat, I'd actually consider it. I said, you're kidding. He goes, nope. He said, if I could have a say on diversity and inclusion, if I could actually get inside the company and have that conversation, then I'm interested. But how are we going to change people? How are we going to change companies if we don't do the work ourselves? I'll never forget that. I was just blown away. And so that gave us, Colin and me, permission to go back and negotiate with them. And there were a couple times that Colin and I would get off the phone and think, oh my gosh, are we just like speeding down a cul-de-sac? Is that what's happening here? Are we going to crash into a house? But Shaquille kept his vision on that and said, I'm telling you, this is going to turn out okay. And when we first did the deal, it wasn't okay. There online, there were just thousands of comments that Shaquille was a sellout. And Shaquille he really kept his nerves and said, we're going to be fine because we're going to work this on inclusion and diversity. And they have. The companies listened to him. He's loved being on the board. He's learned a lot being on the board. But, you know, we really hit a trifecta on that deal. Shaquille is a franchisee. He's a spokesperson, and the spokesperson includes not just cash, but ownership in the company. And he's a board member. And so it's a labor of love for part of it. And the other part is it's a great business deal. So I think that it's worked all the way around. I've loved being a part of it, and I've loved watching Shaquille have kind of that steel spine that you need to have at times in a deal, and he's never wavered off of it.
And to speak about the kind of guy that Andre is, when Shaquille asked you to represent him, you said, I've got to go to Andre first because of the conflicts thing. And what did Andre say?
Yeah, Andre was great. I flew home, and at the time, Andre and I were next door neighbors. And when I got to the house, I was in Burbank with Shaquille, and I flew home to Vegas, and I walked into my house, and Andre was in my kitchen, and he was pacing. And I said, "You okay?" He said, "Yeah, he's going to hire you." I said, "Well, how do you feel about that?" He said, "Well, I told him if he wants someone that's going to be honest and will work every day for him, it's great." I said, "You're okay with it?" He said, "Perry, I totally support it." He was great. He really was.
And if he had said no, you wouldn't have done it.
I wouldn't have done it. There's no chance.
Well, that's about it. All about it, affable and integrity. I mean, obviously, you have integrity, and you surround yourself with people that do as well. And that's no accident. I mean, that's the way you are. I was fortunate enough to meet Shaq. Quick story. I don't have too many quick stories because I'm Irish, but I'll try and make it quick. Bono and U2 were playing in Miami, right? And Shaq, since you're so affiliated with Shaq, he has a reverence for law enforcement. Well, the chief of police of Miami was a buddy of mine from the Bronx. And I said, he's from Dublin, John Timoney. And I said, I know you're going to see U2 tonight. I says, where do you want? I'm going to meet you. I want to see Bono and see U2. That's it, And he said, well, there's a pre-party, whatever. So I got to meet Shaq anyway. And totally affable guy. I mean, just couldn't be nicer. I mean, he was as sweet could be. And as you know, like in Ireland, well, God is extremely popular in Ireland, but Bono was even more popular than God, And so anyway, it was just, I got to meet Shaq, and he was like a super, super nice guy.
And,
I mean,
20 years on a New York fire department and a first responder. John Timoney was a big name in New York who had moved to Miami. What was he?
Oh, yeah. Well, he was the chief of police in Miami. He was the youngest chief of police in New York, and he was a commissioner in Philadelphia. He wrote a book called A Tale of Three Cities. John is dead now, Lord have mercy on him. He died young. What a terrific guy, and a straight shooter like yourself, man. And you can see that. I mean, I don't know you. I just met you via the internet, and I can tell. Well, you got integrity. I mean, the way he wafts over things. Yeah, so we started the bank, and then we bought the Golden Nugget. I'm like, wow.
But like you said, Perry's a gambler, and I corrected you off camera. Perry's not a gambler, but Perry takes chances, and that's the difference between a gambler and a guy who takes chances.
But when he throws the dice, he's throwing the dice with every number's covered.
But he evaluates the odds before he takes his shot.
Well, I just plunge.
Sure. So back to Shaq. On Icy Hot was the first deal, and what did you say? How many deals have you ever had renewed? Did you say?
Well, yeah. So what happened was the way that they hired me, I was in New York. This is the U.S. Open 2001. This would have been September 4th or 5th. Something like that. And I got a phone call from a money manager, Lester Nispel, and he said, I've got Shaquille on the phone, and we've got his Uncle Mike and a lawyer named Dennis Roach. And everything's fine with Shaquille's agent. We just want your take. I said, okay. And Shaquille came on and said, hey. And I said, hey, I've met you a couple times. How can I help you? And he said, well, I just want to know what you think of my marketing. And I said, oh, well, I don't really follow your career very well. I don't follow it closely. But the stuff I've seen you in, from what I've seen, I would say you're the worst marketed athlete in sports. And I really did say that. And it was quiet. And but they were looking for advice. I just feel like you need to give people the truth. And I said, look, again, I don't see all your ads, but the last ad I saw you and you were in a tutu on a dance floor. And he goes, oh, yeah, that ad's funny. I was just quiet. And he goes, hello? I said, hello. And he said, I said, that ad's funny. I said, yeah, great. If that's what you think marketing is, then great. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, listen, Ben, Marketing is about being relatable. Marketing is about persuasion. And if I can't relate to you, then you're not going to be able to persuade me. I promise you that. And, you've won 2 championships in a row. Was that hard? And he said, yes. I said, did you work hard? He said, yes. I said, well, congratulations. You have something in common with 250 million Americans who are out there working hard every day. What ad have you ever done that told them that you understand hard work? He was quiet. And I said, let me tell you what America thinks. They think if they were 7'1", they'd make their free throws. That's what they think.
Wow.
And the truth of it is, it's not as simple as that. There's a lot of 7'1" people in the world, but there's only one of you. And so what you're doing on the court is really magical. But you're not telling that story in a way that people can relate to. You're in a tutu on a dance floor. And the question is, when are you going to start to talk to people in a way that they can hear you? So it was kind of quiet. And I said, look, there's a way to tell whether or not what I'm saying is right or wrong. There's an objective way to tell, which is how many deals have you had renewed? Because if a deal gets renewed, it means that you've made them happy and they've made you happy. And if it's not renewed, then you have objective evidence that it failed somewhere along the line. And it was quiet. And he said, 0. I said, what do you mean 0? You've never had a deal renewed? He goes, no. I said, Reebok? No. What about like Pepsi? He goes, no. I said, no other deal that you've done has ever been renewed? He said, no. And then right then Andre came down. And I said, I got to go. And believe it or not, the next night, we were in a restaurant in Molino in the meatpacking district. It's me, Andre, Steph, Gil, Darren Cahill, I think Todd Wilson was there. And this guy keeps looking over at us. And he's sitting at the table next to us. He keeps looking over. And finally says, are you Perry Rogers? And I said, yeah. He said, I'm Dennis Roach. I'm the lawyer that was on the phone yesterday. He said, I thought you were in Los Angeles. He said, I was, but my daughter goes to the University of Pennsylvania, so we flew out here. This is her favorite restaurant in America, and we take the train down to Philly tomorrow. And I said, oh, listen, I hope I didn't offend anyone with what I said. I was kind of blunt, but you guys were asking me for advice. If you want more advice, feel free to call me. And he said, oh, we're going to call you, but you just haven't figured it out yet. And that's when I knew, okay, not everything's fine with their agent. I left something out. Shaquille asked me at the very end, do you think I make enough money in off-the-court endorsements? And I said, I have no idea. I don't know what you make. So 9/11 happens. 5 days later, the world shuts down. A few weeks goes by. Shaquille calls and says, would you come see me in Burbank? I went down, as we've already discussed. And one of the things he said that I thought was really interesting is in the meeting, he said, I want to hire you. And I said, I got to talk to Andre. I said, you got to talk to Andre about it. And he said, do you know why I knew I could trust you? And I said, no, I don't know why. He said, I asked you a few weeks ago if I made enough money off the court, and you said you didn't know what I made. And I realized everyone else that I'd asked that question to said, no, you should make more. But when you said you didn't know what I made, I realized they didn't know what I made either.
Wow.
They were pitching. Isn't that smart?
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So he has this. Do I have time for one more story?
Oh, you got all the time in the world, Perry.
I'm
fascinating.
telling you, this is when you realize how smart this freaking guy is. So he retires in 2011, and we know that everyone's going to want him to be a broadcaster. So Lance Klein, who's our agent at WME, calls up David Levy for Turner and John Skipper for ESPN. And we're going to have a bidding war. And as an agent, that sounds like an awesome thing. So David Levy comes in the room, and he says, I'm David Levy. This is my business partner, Steve Koonin. We run Turner Broadcasting, and that's TBS and TNT, and we run Turner Sports. And he just starts telling jokes. He's funny, and he has kind of a shtick with Steve Koonin. They're going back and forth. And then we get to talking about the business. And he says, Shaquille, I want to be clear. I win the Emmy pretty much every year. And I'm the number one show in basketball. I don't need you, but I want you. I'm not going to have you train on, how to be a broadcaster. I'm not sending you off to school for that. I'm not telling you to look into camera 2. I just think you'd be great to add. We'd love to have you. I'm a relationship. That's all I said. We'd love to have you. We'd have a lot of fun. We hope you choose us. Goodbye. John Skipper walks in. Says, I'm John Skipper. I run ESPN. I went to the University of North Carolina. I'm the most competitive son of a bitch you're ever going to come across. I am number 1 in every show except basketball. I know you're talking to David Levy because I just saw him in the lobby, and I want to win. I want to have a show that beats his show. So I'll put the show wherever you want. We're owned by Disney. I know you have a house in Orlando, and so you could live there. I'll build a show around you. You could do it in Los Angeles. You can do it out here. There's some other place you want to live, let me know. But we'll build a show around you. Thank you very much. Take care. So as an agent, Colin and Lance and I are looking at each other like, this is going to be a great day. And so I look at Shaquille and I say, okay, what do you want to do? And Shaquille goes, we're going with Turner. I go, hold on a second. Hold on. Shaquille, we haven't even talked numbers with anyone. And he goes, we're going with Turner. I said, Shaquille, hold on a second. You can't just decide that. He says, yes, I can. We're going with Turner. I go, wow, why are you so forceful about this? He said, let me tell you something, Barry. Today is my worst day with David Levy. He's a relationship guy, and I'm a relationship guy. And so from here, it's only going to get better. But today's my best day with John Skipper. You heard him. He's the most competitive son of a bitch we've ever come across. And he's number 2 in this category. So when the show doesn't pass Turner, guess who's going to get blamed? Me. And I'm going to be out of the broadcasting business. So we're going with Turner. I go, okay, I totally hear you. And we'll make that happen. I'm going to work them off each other. And he said, Perry, in all the time, at this point, we'd only worked together for 10 years. So this is 10 years ago. He says, in all the time we worked together, have we ever played anyone off each other? I said, no, but he goes, Perry, no. What do you think I should make as a broadcaster? So I think you should make $X. And he said, great, then that's your job. Go get it. Give me John Skipper's number right now. I said, I'm not giving it to you. Just give it to me. So I'm not giving it to you. Give me the number. And knowing that he said 1 and I'm not, I wisely realized I should give him the number. I gave him the number, and he called John. He walked outside, called John, and said, it's not about money, obviously. I'm going to go a different direction. And came back in and said, go get the deal done with Turner.
That's great.
That's incredible foresight, right? I mean, just you don't really get that impression when you see Shaq on television that that he's that deep a thinker. That's profound.
It was unbelievable.
Yep.
Really.
And you guys also are in a feature film business with Uncle Drew. How did that come about?
We represented Kyrie Irving from 2011 to 2019, and Matt Delzell is a buddy of mine at the marketing arm, and he called and said,
he didn't go to Bishop Gorman, did he?
He did not.
Okay.
He's the one guy that slipped through our cracks at Gorman.
I want to know who that teacher was. He had to be Aristotle. I wanted to be in that class.
So we represented Kyrie, and I got a call from Matt Delzell, and he said, do you call and represent a football player? I said, no, why? He said, we've got a deal for Pepsi, and they've got the Super Bowl, and I need a football player. And we like working with you and Colin, so you don't represent. I said, no, but you need Kyrie Irving. He said, Perry, I don't have time for this. I really got to get this deal done for the Super Bowl. I said, okay, but you need Kyrie Irving. I kept him on the phone and grinded him down for a local Pepsi deal, $30,000 for Kyrie Irving, the number 1 pick in the draft. And we could do it at the time because there was a lockout that was coming. So there weren't any rights that existed, and Sprite had the league rights at the time. So we did a local deal, shot it down at Jeff Wexler's house in Miami, who's our business partner in the sports agency business. And when they shot it, Mark Gilbar, the director, and Kyrie started talking, and Mark said, I have this idea for Uncle Drew. Well, we shot the commercial. To this day, it's the most viewed basketball content on YouTube. It's unbelievable. The first weekend, it got like 10 million views. And Colin, my business partner, said this should be a film. I went back to Pepsi and got them to, and Frank, you understand this. He got them to write a check to spec a script on an idea, a company with no studio attached.
Right.
And they wrote the check. The script was written by Jay Longino, who's just a fantastic person, wrote a great script. And then Colin went down and sold it to Lionsgate. And that's how we found ourselves in the feature film business. And then we obviously cast Shaquille as Big Fella because we were executive producers.
Incredible. Just incredible.
And you also cashed another check, by the way.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. So it was a great ride.
I'm going to let Billy and Derek ask you some questions because I feel like I've dominated this interview.
Yeah, but I mean, it's been a great interview. You're a fascinating guy, man. Big Chicken. I'm going to throw it at you. Big Chicken. Tell me about Big Chicken. And you haven't done enough. You got to tell me about Big Chicken.
Okay. Well, about 10 or 11 years ago, I found myself in the restaurant business with a childhood friend of mine, Corey Jenkins, and we've been fortunate that's gone well. And I was thinking one day, how can I combine like the restaurant stuff and Shaquille? And Shaquille on TV, whenever he sees a center who he thinks was weak, he'd say, that's barbecue chicken. So he's like, I'm going to eat that guy up tonight like barbecue chicken. And I just thought that was so funny. And so I said to him, well, what if we created a place, and we originally wanted to call it Chicken Shack, but there is a Chicken Shack. What if we create a place called Chicken Shack where we took the space in chicken that Shake Shack has taken in burgers, which is a better quality product. And so Shaquille and I generally FaceTime, and he put his hand out and he gave me a thumbs up. I said, okay, well, that's good. I said, what if we did a TV show around, the kind of the building of this company? He put his hand out, gave me a thumbs up. And so we started Big Chicken a few years back. It's gone really well. We just signed a deal with Ghost Kitchen, which will put us in 1,000 Walmarts by the end of 2024. And so we're excited about where we're headed and where that company's going. And Shaquille's been fantastic.
Great. Derek?
Wow. Yeah, I have a question. There's a viral.
Are you on camera?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a viral video of Shaq talking about having a conversation with a very wealthy person regarding saving money. And he famously, I think he told the story a couple times, but one of the times he used a piece of paper and he ripped it in half, and then he ripped it in half. And he said something to the effect of, a very wealthy person told me, you take your money and you tear it in half and you put that away. And a very extremely wealthy person will take that, rip it in half, and then rip it in half again. And then that 25%, essentially, you can do whatever. You can buy the gold chains and the cars. Do you happen to know who that was?
I don't. I'm sorry. I've not heard that story before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did not know that. I'll have to check out that video.
Excellent. And then
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. And then another question I have is, how many days a week do you work?
Well, you're working all the time. People's lives don't stop. You're taking care of their lives. So, I work really long hours for 5 days a week, and then I work part of Saturday and I work part of Sunday. But during the events, Saturdays and Sundays are when I try to keep up with my other jobs. So I'd say for 2 months out of the year, I'm working 7 days a week.
Right.
Yeah, but
the rest I'm working.
Yeah, but you're a good father though, because I see pictures posted of Hannah, Grant, and Ryan, your three kids, and you're always with them at their events. They're your first clients.
They are, and the one thing that I've done, so in my entire career, so I started in '93. We built the office out. So from 93 to 2021, I have gone into the office on a weekend 3 times. So I work, but I'm, I'll be at home. I don't go into the office so that I can be with my family, with my kids and my wife.
That's great.
Billy, any closing thoughts? Closing questions?
Yeah, well, when I was doing research for you, Perry, I got to tell you, some of the things really hit me. Like, especially when you say no shortcuts. I love that. You say they're all long cuts. And from a guy who's taken every get-rich-quick scheme ever invented and jumped in full speed ahead, I often tell Frank if I bought a cemetery, people would stop dying, which is pretty true. I mean, I love that there's no shortcuts. It's about discipline. It's about hard work. And it's about having integrity and being affable. And you certainly showed us how affable you can be. And I appreciate it. And I appreciate
You're very kind.
So, Perry,
Thank you. You're very kind.
One more time, can you tell us where people can get tickets, an email address or something for Saturday's Shaq Foundation event in Vegas?
Yep. So it's October 2nd, Saturday night, Las Vegas. Tickets range from $125 up to $350. But the show is, it's unbeatable. It's Justin Bieber, Imagine Dragons, Kelly Clarkson, Snoop, Andra Day, Jimmy Kimmel is the host. And I will tell you, we have a closing number that's going to be incredible. And they can get them on access.com, AXS.com, and it's at the MGM Grand Garden.
Great.
Fantastic.
You've been a terrific guest, pal.
Thanks, y'all. You're the best.
Can't wait to see you again.
I look forward to it.
Give me a call the next time you're in Burbank.
I will, I promise.
All right. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks.
Good.
Pleasure meeting you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thanks.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
Guy is incredible. I mean, I kidded around about the Hydra and how many hats he wears, but then I started a bank and then I bought a casino and, okay. Really, really amazingly accomplished guy. Just.
Yeah. I wish I could have bought stock in him young.
I wish I was in that high school class.
Yeah.
But you know what? When he's talked about being a producer and he called it a conductor, that's the best analogy I've heard. I'm always after you. What does a producer do? And I see it. I mean, I see it now because of the podcast and everything. But just he said it's a conductor.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty good analogy, a one-word analogy, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that was a cool shout out to Frank too. I have a question about that because you mentioned that you asked him for advice.
Yeah.
And so how was that? You were the senior in the relationship in terms of age and at that point I think even responsibility.
I
right?
would have asked a young Shirley Temple for advice if I thought she knew something that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Smart.
I would ask anybody for advice. How my friend Howard Morris, the great Howard Morris, who passed away now, show of shows, and Ernest T. Bass and Mayberry, and he became a very famous director. And he said, there are no shortage of good ideas. If the craft service person has a good idea, I'll take it. I'm not too proud to take advice from anybody who knows more than I know. Right. And that's always been my philosophy.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean,
look,
you don't have to take the advice, but it doesn't hurt to listen to it.
Look at this. I understand that Billy's a funny guy. Billy O'Connor's a funny guy, far funnier and far more entertaining than I am. I understand that Derek is a technical whiz, far more technical, with far more ability to have than I do. But this partnership works because all three of us bring something the other needs to the table.
Yeah, I think it's like a stool. If one leg goes, we're screwed.
Yeah, well, don't use the stool. Don't use the stool.
It's got 3 legs. Frank.
Don't use the stool comparison.
Please.
3 legs on a stool.
What type of stool?
What type of stool? That's what I'm driving at.
I know what you're driving at. I'm trying to keep it clean. I got a picture of my mother in my wallet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, Frank? I like to keep it clean.
So how about your pick for
Oh, my pick. Aha. Well, you know me, Frank. I'm looking for the dog. I'm always looking for the dog. The Falcons are playing the Redskins.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take the points with the Redskins. I think the Falcons are a mess. I'm going to take the points with the Redskins.
Points with the Redskins.
Mm-hmm. The Redskins are on a road dog.
Yeah, well, you're 50-50 so far. You're about par for the course. So
I didn't go to the right high school. That's the problem.
You didn't go to Bishop Gorman High School.
Jesus, I wish I did.
That's for sure. Derek's mulling over his pick for me. So
He's going to throw it at you.
just give me a pick and tell me where they're playing.
This is a difficult one, I think.
Are you surprised that we're doing this? Is this
No, well, we want to make this difficult for the master selector.
Yeah, this is the guru over here. Speaking of which, when we're talking about gambling and football, Lamar's Gamble is still available out there. Hell of a book.
It is for sure. It is.
Hell of a book.
It's getting some good press too, especially since we've got Combustible out. They're fighting each other. People are fighting each other.
Droves. I think the word we're looking for. Droves.
And they're still buying If These Lips Could Talk.
Yes, they are.
So if anybody wants to buy either of our books, you can go to www.amicandamike.com/books, BOOKS /.
You the man. And not either of our books, any of our books.
So what are we going to do now, Billy? We've written 3 books in 3 years. I'm not writing a third.
Well, let's go back to Perry. We'll open a library.
Yeah. Well, and we're already in Upton's library.
That's great. Yeah, Upton Bell. That's right. We're in his library, and which was really great when we had him on. He verified just about everything we had written in the book.
Yeah.
You know?
Now,
Bell's son.
Have we stalled long enough for you, Derek?
You have a game for us.
I might have a game. Are we picking the games from?
Just grab a game.
October
brother.
2nd,
Okay.
Sunday.
No, it's the 3rd. No.
October 3rd, right?
Yeah. Okay. So listen. Let's go with the Steelers and the Packers.
All right, Packers. How about that? Let's
Don't you want to know where they're playing? You don't even care.
I don't even care.
Packers are home.
Packers are home.
So they're favored. The Packers are probably about 4.
Packers and give the points.
I wish I had known that.
He's going to lay the points with the Packers.
Packers, give the points by that.
Billy O with his old familiar underdog. Been an underdog all my life, Frank. I'm going to stay with the dog.
As soon as he said, no matter who he said, I was going to say something as fast as possible. Just
Get off.
Just to say how happy I would be to make that suggestion. All right, let's get out of here. But before we do, let's give another shout out to Weekend Coffee. Make great coffee delivered straight to your door. They're donating a pack for every 10 packets sold to first responders. This has been a big month for first responders and firemen. It's a tough month, as you said. And there are a lot of emotions stirred up with Richie. Richie was a great guest, Picciotto. Your blog was a terrific blog. I encourage everybody who hasn't read Billy's blog to go to the site amicandamike.com /blogs and read Billy's
and Gil's blogs as well.
And they're terrific. And we're so lucky. I just thank my lucky stars every day.
And I do too, Frank. And I can't thank you enough for bringing the people that you're bringing on to these podcasts. It's been just a great experience for me, meeting these people.
Great. Thank you so much. Do the now traditional say goodnight, Derek.
Adios, amigos.
There he is again, that bilingual stuff. I want to have another cup of coffee.
Me too. Cheers.
Cheers. Take care. Thanks for looking in.
Next week's guest, Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame pitcher and 2-time 20-game winner, Jim Maloney.
We'll see you next week.